Incredible discovery. Millionaire unexpectedly witnesses cleaning lady's heartwarming defense of community in gentrification battle. In the gleaming suburb of Maplewood, Mark Thompson seemed to have it all, a sprawling mansion adorned with accolades and the envy of wealth at every corner. But beneath the polished facade lay a sinking feeling, a restless dissatisfaction gnawing at his spirit. Days blended into one another, filled with meetings, social gatherings, an emptiness that even his million-dollar home couldn't fulfill. One enchanting morning, as the sun streamed through the tall windows, Mark heard a voice like none he had encountered before. It was Clara Martinez, his devoted cleaning lady, passionately defending her community against a looming threat. Rising from humble beginnings, her resilience sparked something deep within him. With each word, she painted a vivid picture of unity, compassion, and unwavering love for her family, a stark contrast to the greed that began to surface among the affluent members of his social circle. "Listen," Clara exclaimed to a group of concerned neighbors, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We can't just turn our backs on each other. Our families built this neighborhood. We've sacrificed so much for a better life here." Her words were powerful, echoing in Mark's ears long after they faded. Clara's love for her community was palpable, her sincerity cutting through his apathetic shell like a warm knife through butter. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As Mark observed Clara's community unite, a fire ignited deep within him. He felt torn between the pressure from his affluent neighbors to profit from gentrification and the urge to support Clara in her valiant stand. After all, he had built his fortune on a foundation of integrity, one that now threatened to crumble under the weight of greed. Days turned into weeks, and tension escalated as Clara and her neighbors rallied against the impending displacement. They organized meetings, crafted petitions, and filled the local park with dozens of determined voices. Just when it felt like hope might prevail, devastation struck. A cold notice arrived from the Neighborhood Association's powerful attorney, bearing implications of eviction that could wipe Clara's family off the very land they cherished. Mark stood frozen, ink drying on paper, the air thick with despair. He could see Clara in the midst of her neighbors, tears glistening in her eyes. The anguish surrounding her struck him like a thunderclap. Did he have the courage to choose justice over convenience? The community had rallied, showing the sheer force of togetherness against economic inequality that made his life seem trivial by comparison. The echoes of Clara's heartfelt plea rang in his mind. "We are more than our bank accounts." He inhaled sharply, feeling the overwhelming pressure of the moment. Would he let privilege dictate his actions, or would he rise to stand alongside Clara and her family? The choice lingered in the air, bittersweet yet hopeful, leaving everything about his future hanging in the balance. And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, he knew the answer wasn't just going to come to him, it would demand more than he ever thought possible. Clara's voice rang in his heart, a constant reminder of the weighty decision hanging over him. The next morning, he woke up feeling more unsettled than usual. The mansion, once a fortress shielding him from the world, now felt hollow. He moved through the rooms, admiring the fine art and elegant furniture, yet they provided no solace. He was staring down a fork in the road, and he couldn't ignore the call to action. As the day wore on, Mark drove toward Clara's neighborhood, the sun streaming through his car's windows providing an almost false sense of warmth. He arrived at the local community center, where Clara and her neighbors had gathered for an emergency meeting. It felt odd to approach from the outside, his tailored suit standing in stark contrast to the simple attire of the crowd. He hesitated for a fleeting moment, thinking about turning around, but then he remembered Clara's plea and stepped inside. The room buzzed with voices, the walls lined with posters showcasing community events, each one a testament to their struggles and victories. Clara stood at the front, surrounded by her neighbors, her fierce spirit still alive and palpable. Today, her usual confidence was tinged with fear. Mark detected a tremor in her hands as she clutched the microphone. "Tonight we stand together," Clara said, her voice unwavering. "But we can't do it without everyone who believes in our home." There was encouragement in the room, but doubt shadowed Clara's words. Mark felt a crushing sense of urgency. He needed to take action. To give her hope, he cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the crowd. "Excuse me, I want to help," he stammered, nerves tearing at his composure. Eyes turned toward him, some curious, others skeptical. "I know I'm not one of you. I know I've lived in comfort while you've struggled. But what I saw in Clara, I can't ignore it anymore." A chorus of murmurs swept through the crowd. Clara's gaze widened, uncertainty flickering on her face. "Mark," she began, but he pressed on, feeling the weight of the moment. "I have resources. I thought they were enough, but now I see that they're just a distraction from what really matters: the people, the community. I want to invest in this neighborhood with you, not against you." Silence fell, broken only by the sound of Clara's sharp intake of breath. The tension crackled in the air like electricity. "Are you serious?" she finally asked, skepticism lacing her words. "Yes," Mark replied, his heart pounding. "I'm willing to fight against this gentrification. We can find a way to work together, to protect your homes, your families. I want to make this right." Clara looked around the room, gauging the reactions. The weight of hope settled slowly, inching into their hearts. A man from the back shouted, "If he's with us, maybe this can really work." A rumble of agreement spread through the crowd. Clara eyed him closely, an expression that mixed gratitude and caution as they delved into planning. Mark felt a warmth unfolding inside him, stitching together the rips in his life he hadn't even realized existed. They sketched ideas for community fundraisers, legal battles, and social media campaigns. Every suggestion brought him closer to belonging, closer to Clara. But the path was fraught with challenges. Powerful interests weren't going to give up easily. As the meeting wrapped up, Clara pulled him aside. "You know this won't be easy, right?" "I do," he said with resolve. "But I'm ready to fight." As he left the center, the air felt charged. He realized that this was just the beginning. Clara needed him as much as he needed her, a force intertwined in the battle against the odds. And as night fell over Maplewood, Mark understood. This fight would demand everything from him, and perhaps even more than he had to offer. Would he truly be able to alter the course of their fate? Or was this destined to be another chapter of betrayal hidden under promises? The next morning, Mark rose with a purpose that felt invigorating yet daunting. The sunlight streamed into his bedroom, but he hardly noticed. Rather, he was consumed with thoughts of the meeting. Each idea, each plan shared, spun in his mind like the whirl of a busy city. But along with that drive came the pit in his stomach. The fear of failure loomed just as heavily as the promise of change. He dressed quickly and headed out, the fresh morning air offering a jolt to his senses. The streets were quieter now, pillars of his neighborhood standing like dormant giants, unaware of the upcoming storm. Today, he would talk to Clara about drawing the community closer, about creating a safe space where their ideas could flourish. Arriving at Clara's modest home, Mark paused to take in a deep breath. Her front garden, wild and colorful, reminded him of how beautiful the neighborhood could be. He knocked softly, and Clara answered almost immediately, her eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and determination. "Mark, you're here early," she said, a smile breaking through her earlier uncertainty. "I thought we could brainstorm a plan to start mobilizing the community," he proposed, his eagerness bubbling over. "Maybe your neighbors have ideas we haven't tapped into yet." "I love that," Clara replied, her momentary surprise morphing into enthusiasm. "Let me gather a few folks. We can meet at the community center again." As they arrived, the atmosphere buzzed with palpable energy, families pulling together like branches of a tree, seeking sunlight despite the shadows surrounding them. Mark watched Clara walk confidently through the crowd, engaging with her neighbors, her spirit igniting a fire within him. Within moments, the center filled with laughter, ideas flying around like confetti. They shared stories of how they changed this area together, creating fundraisers and art fairs that brought life into the community when no one thought it could thrive. And with every idea, Mark felt more welcomed. For the first time, he was beginning to feel like one of them. But with the thrill of action came haunting thoughts of those who might oppose their efforts. Mark's earlier doubts resurfaced, the fear of powerful developers latching onto their weakness. Clara must have sensed his tension. "Mark," she interrupted, her voice soft yet firm. "You look worried. What's on your mind?" I don't want to let you down. I know what's at stake," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm terrified of failing alongside you. Failure is just a step on the way to success. You've already shown courage by stepping into this fight," she reassured him, squeezing his arm gently. "You're not alone anymore." The support from Clara bolstered Mark's spirit. Yet deep down, a haunting thought lingered. What if his efforts brought only more trouble for Clara and her neighbors? They worked late into the evening, drafting flyers and organizing schedules, laughter mingling with urgency. But just when Mark felt a surge of hope, a hush fell over the room. A neighbor burst through the door, breathless. "You won't believe it. I just heard there's a meeting with the developers tonight. They're planning a huge property buyout to start demolitions next week." A wave of dread washed over the room. Clara's face fell, fear slipping into her eyes like wind through cracks in a door. "Meet tonight," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to show up. We need to fight for our homes." Clara nodded, determination replacing her fear, and the group rallied around the idea. Mark felt a sudden rush, the fire from before igniting again, but this time, it felt different. It was urgency mixed with resolve, a charge that could either energize or consume them all. But were they really ready to face the developers? Could they stand united and truly defend what mattered most? As night fell, Mark knew every moment counted. The fight was on, and what lay ahead would change everything. Would they be able to withstand the force threatening their homes? Or was this just the beginning of a long battle? Mark's heart raced as he and Clara joined the small group gathering at the community center. The room buzzed with anxious chatter, faces etched with fear and determination. He could see the tension hanging like smoke in the air, concerns of what the developers would bring and what it would mean for their homes. But there was also something else. A resolve that felt electric and alive. "All right, everyone," Clara began, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "We have a chance to stand together tonight. We need to speak with one voice, loud and clear." Mark felt a surge of pride watching her take charge. She was the embodiment of hope, standing tall among the worried faces. He squeezed the hand of a nearby neighbor for solidarity, its warmth an anchor against the rising tide of anxiety. As Clara continued to speak, Mark began to notice the tremor in her usually steady voice. He wanted to reach out and catch her eye, give her that supportive nod. But he was just as lost in the storm of his thoughts. What if they failed? What if tonight's confrontation led to heartbreak instead of hope? "Mark," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Julie, a woman in her late 50s who had lived on their street for decades. "You know how the developers operate. They don't care about us. They just want to make a profit." He nodded, recalling the stories he'd heard about how similar communities had been ripped apart. Their vibrant neighborhoods, stripped of their soul, turned into cold concrete jungles. "But we can't let them do that easily." Clara spoke up again, her passion igniting the room. "We need to remind them that we're not just names on a list. We are families, friends, we're a community." People began to murmur their agreement, and Mark felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. If Clara could harness this energy, if they could tap into their collective strength, maybe they could turn the tide. "Anyone want to share their story?" Clara asked, scanning the room. "We need to show them what's at stake." Hands shot up, and one by one, stories flowed like a river. Families who lived in the same homes for generations. Memories of laughter and love that echoed in each corner of the neighborhood. Mark listened, moved by how each tale was a thread in the fabric of their community. Suddenly, tension faded, even if only slightly. They were fighting for each other, for their shared history, not just for land. But then, just as the atmosphere brightened, someone entered from outside. It was Todd, the developer who had been rumored to be behind the buyouts, striding in with an air of arrogance. The room froze, each heart pounding like a drum against the stillness. "Clara," Mark, he called out casually, a smirk threatening to break through his guarded persona. "I hope you've got a plan that makes this easy on all of us." Mark's stomach twisted. Anger blazed within him. How could this man speak so dismissively about their homes? Clara stepped forward, fear turning into a fierce defiance. "What you're doing is not just a business deal. It's our lives. You'll hear us tonight," she declared. The tension swelled, the atmosphere shifting like a storm preparing to break. "Let us do this," Mark whispered to Clara, seeing the fire in her eyes mirrored in others around him. It was time to fight for their future. As they prepared for the battle ahead, he knew one thing for certain: this moment would define them. Did they have the strength to rise against the looming threat? Or would they fall apart, helpless against the tide of greed? That question hung heavy in the air, and Mark could feel every heartbeat echoing the uncertainty of what was to come. Would they stand united? Or would they crumble under the pressure waiting just behind the door? The air crackled with tension. Todd leaned back against the wall, arms crossed as if he were watching a show rather than standing among frightened families. Clara didn't back down. Her voice rang out, unyielding. "You might see us as mere dollar signs, but we're so much more than that." With those words, she sparked a murmur of agreement, and hope flickered brighter in Mark's chest. People around him shifted, their nervous energy transforming into a collective determination. Mark felt it building, their resolve knitting them together like strands of an unbreakable rope. He raised his hand, catching Clara's gaze for a moment, sharing a silent promise to stand together, no matter what. "I've lived here over 30 years, shouted Mr. Jenkins, an older man whose voice quivered with age and passion. "My kids grew up playing in the same yard I played in. You can't just erase that." The room erupted with voices, tales of memories interwoven with laughter and tears, each one a reminder of what they stood to lose. Mark's heart filled with each word, swelling with pride for his community. This was what it was all about: the neighbors who had become family, who shared everything from holiday dinners to late-night emergencies. Todd shifted, his smirk faltering, but he quickly collected himself, sarcasm dripping from his voice. "I get it, really, but you have to understand, the business doesn't stop for nostalgia." A wave of murmurs washed over the group. Anger, disbelief, and defiance rolled into one. "Just because you don't care doesn't mean we won. Fight for every inch of soil," Mark shouted, driven by a sudden surge of courage. He could feel the weight of eyes turning toward him. "These homes aren't just properties. They are our lives." In that moment, he was surprised at the steadiness of his voice. Clara nodded fervently, her expression one of pride and surprise. The room responded with a rippling wave of encouragement, voices rising together in a chorus of unity. Each word echoed in the walls, a reminder of what was at stake. Todd raised an eyebrow, appearing slightly rattled but refusing to show it. "We can make this easy or difficult. Your choice," he said coolly, but Mark saw a flicker of uncertainty. Clara took 2 steps forward, resolute. "You may think you can intimidate us with your money and power, but that's not what we're afraid of. We fear losing each other, our community." Her vulnerability drew in the crowd, faces softening with the rawness of her message. "When you strip away our homes, you strip away our stories. And we refuse to let you erase that. We will stand against you together." A keyboard clicked quietly in the corner, and a young girl began to play a soft, hopeful tune. The notes danced through the air, piercing the tension like a shaft of light. Mark felt an unexpected warmth wash over him, as if Clara's words and the music had forged an invisible link binding them all. A few joined in singing softly, their voices blending with the melody. It was a sweet, defiant anthem of unity, and even some of the older members wiped away unshed tears as they joined in. Todd, taken aback by the sudden shift, stood just a little bit straighter. The golden glow of hope flickered through the room, filling the air with unyielding determination. They may have more money, but they had heart. And that was worth fighting for as the final note faded into silence. Mark locked eyes with Clara once more. They both knew they had become something more than just neighbors. They had become a community willing to fight for what they cherished. But as the intensity built, the sharp sound of a clipboard hitting the floor interrupted the fragile moment. Everyone turned to see someone new in the doorway, a grim expression on their face, holding a document that smelled of more than just paper. "Sorry I'm late, but I think you all need to see this," the newcomer said breathlessly, and Mark couldn't shake the sense that whatever this was could change everything. Fear and anticipation swirled like a storm inside him. What other unexpected revelations lay ahead for them? The newcomer stepped into the room, his presence demanding immediate attention. Everyone's gaze landed on him, curiosity merging with anxiety. He was unkempt, his hair tousled and eyes wide, as if he had raced through the streets to deliver urgent news. The clipboard clutched in his hands trembled slightly, adding to the tension in the air. "What's going on?" Clara asked, her voice cutting through the whispers. She approached the stranger, her concern palpable. He took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "I just found out some things about the project," he stammered, glancing nervously at Todd, who leaned against the wall, his arms now crossed tightly over his chest. The confident smirk had vanished, replaced by a flicker of unease. Mark stepped forward, instinctively protecting his community. "What things?" "We deserve to know." The newcomer nodded, his expression serious. I'm an intern working for the firm that's behind the development. I found some documents that indicate they've been," he paused, searching for the right words. "They've been hiding crucial information. The project is not just about the homes. There are plans to displace hundreds of people and build luxury condos." Gasps erupted, and a chorus of stunned voices filled the room. "Luxury condos?" Mark repeated, disbelief coloring his tone. "They want to replace our lives with corporate greed?" "Yes," the intern replied, his voice rising above the murmurs. "But there's more. They're planning to use questionable methods to acquire the properties. I believe they might be manipulating the situation to make it seem like selling is the best option." Anger ignited in the room, sparking a renewed sense of determination. People began to talk over one another, their words pooling into a tide of outrage and solidarity. "So, they think they can strong-arm us, huh?" Mr. Jenkins' face reddened with fury. "We'll show them what we're made of." Clara stepped back, trying to piece it all together as she clutched her clipboard tighter. "What do we do? If they're using unethical tactics, we need to expose them." The young girl's music had long faded, replaced by the urgent beats of hope and anger echoing in their hearts. Mark felt the adrenaline pumping through him. The threat was real, but so was their strength. "Let us gather evidence," he exclaimed, rallying his neighbors. "We need to collect every story, every memory, and we'll take it to the media. We'll show them how our lives aren't numbers on a spreadsheet." As he shouted, the crowd responded with renewed fervor. Voices joined together, filling the room with chants of defiance and purpose. "We want to leave. We want to be silenced." But in the midst of the adrenaline, Mark caught sight of Todd. The corporate man no longer appeared smug. He was scrambling to regain control, frantically jotting notes on his clipboard as if he could somehow reverse the tide. Suddenly, the intern raised his hands, drawing quiet attention once more. "If I could suggest one more thing, there's a community meeting scheduled next week that they didn't want you to know about. It's an opportunity for the public to voice their opposition." Another uproar of voices filled the room. What he was saying ran deep. This meeting could be their chance, their moment to rally together against the darkness looming over their community. Mark's heart raced with hope. "This is it. We'll be there together. If they want to fight, then we'll give them one they'll never forget." But before the celebration could fully erupt, a realization set in. What if their plans backfired? What unseen traps lay ahead in the shadows of their fight? As Todd gathered his documents, Mark noticed something flicker behind the man's focused expression. Was it regret or fear? With doubt gnawing at him, Mark's stomach churned. Could they truly win this battle, or were they stepping into a more treacherous game than they ever imagined? The answers lingered on the horizon, waiting just out of reach, and the moment of truth was drawing ever closer. The community meeting was set to take place in just a few days. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness draped over the town, Mark's mind raced with unease. He glanced around the room, still buzzing with anxious energy. They had so much to do, yet doubts lingered like shadows, threatening to overshadow their purpose. With Clara standing beside him, Mark felt a jolt of determination surge through him. "We can do this," he murmured, glancing at her. "They can't silence us." "Right?" Clara said, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But we need a plan, a way to collect stories from everyone. Ask them what this place means to them." The room had settled into a tense quiet. Neighbors exchanged nervous glances, each of them grappling with their fears and apprehensions. "What if we share a joint testimony?" Mr. Jenkins suggested, breaking the silence. "We could put together a video that connects everyone's experiences." "Brilliant," Mark exclaimed, feeling a fire light inside him. "We tell our story together. They can't ignore a personal touch. They might even feel something." Collectively fueled by a rare mixture of hope and fear, Mark and Clara began to outline the logistics. They decided to meet at Clara's house the next evening, setting up a schedule to gather stories, recording footage of their neighbors discussing the places they called home. As word spread, excitement bubbled among the residents. The night before the meeting at Clara's house, Mark lay awake, the ceiling fan spinning lazily above him. The weight of anxiety pressed on his chest. He wished for certainty but knew deep down that they were walking on a tightrope, with danger lurking below. What if the developers retaliated? The night slipped away, and before long, he found himself lost in troubling thoughts. The following evening, Clara's home overflowed with chatter and laughter, a vibrant testament to their unity. Friends and neighbors shared stories, both joyful and heartbreaking, each tale woven with the threads of their lives. Mark found himself captivated, normalizing what felt like a struggle not only for homes but for identity. They recounted memories, barbecues in the backyard, children growing up, and friendships blossoming under the very roofs that now hung in the balance. As Mark listened, a realization hit him. This project wasn't just about real estate. It was about their lives, their history, their home. He stood, clearing his throat, instilling every ounce of belief he had into his words. "What we're building here is more than a protest. It's a true community voice. Our voices together can echo in ways they're not prepared for." Moments turned into hours, voices were raised, laughter rang, and their stories collected like firewood, fueling their shared mission. The evening felt electric, ignited by their collective spirit. But as they wrapped up, Mark caught sight of a mysterious figure watching from the distance. It was Todd, standing at the edge of the yard, his expression obscured by shadows. Mark's heart raced as he tried to gauge the man's intentions. Was he simply watching or plotting a countermove against their gathering momentum? What if Todd's presence signaled trouble? What if he had come to sabotage everything they built that night? With his pulse pounding, Mark took a deep breath and turned back to his neighbors. Fear threatened to overwhelm him, but he wouldn't let it control this moment. They were too close now. Unlocking the front door behind him, he stepped out, determined to confront whatever lay ahead. Little did he know, the true battle had only just begun, and he could never anticipate the secrets Todd was hiding. Mark's heart raced as he approached Todd. The night seemed to press in from all sides, darkness wrapped around them like an ominous cloak. Todd stood there, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes narrowed. There was no sign of friendliness on his face. "What do you want, Todd?" Mark called out, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Todd stepped forward, his shadow stretching out against the well-lit porch. "I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Nice little gathering you've got here. Hope you're all ready for the storm that's coming." "What storm?" Mark's stomach nodded. He couldn't shake the feeling that Todd knew more than he was letting on. "The developers aren't going to sit back and watch you string together some sappy video," Todd replied, leaning closer. "They'll tear you apart if you push back." You have no idea what you're up against. Mark stood his ground, anger and fear colliding within him. Whatever they throw at us, we'll stand united, he declared, the fire of his conviction igniting his words. Todd let out a harsh laugh. You think those stories matter? They just see a bunch of nobodies trying to hold on to what they think is theirs. With that, Todd turned abruptly, his silhouette swallowed by the darkness. Mark was left shaken, questions spinning in his mind. Did Todd really mean it? Did their stories truly hold any power? Or were they just words thrown into the void? Returning to the warmth and comfort of Clara's home, Mark shared his encounter with the group. The atmosphere shifted. Their laughter faded into worried murmurs. Would the developers actually strike back? Mark felt a pang of panic ripple through the room, as Clara's reassuring presence anchored him. Fear is just another weapon they try to use against us, Clara said, her voice strong and clear. We've come too far to back down now. We need to come together even more. In the days that followed, tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. Residents began sharing more stories, some filled with laughter, others with tears. Each encounter seemed to fortify their resolve. They met in gardens, kitchens, and living rooms to record their memories. An old woman remembered the lilacs blooming in her front yard, while a teenager recounted her childhood friends riding bikes down the street. The room felt alive with emotion as each person laid bare parts of their soul. Despite the shared empathy blooming among them, Mark could still sense Todd lurking nearby, his presence an unwelcomed shadow. He and Clara devised a plan to counter any dirty moves. They would gather all their footage, edit it, and prepare for the upcoming community meeting with an energy that would shake the very foundation of their town. But it was during one of these recording sessions that something unexpected happened. A neighbor revealed a touching story about her childhood, a heartfelt memory of a beloved cleaning lady who fought to protect the remaining houses in the neighborhood from being sold to developers. She spoke with such passion and love that Marcus' heart swelled at the thought that these everyday lives could make waves. Suddenly, the door burst open, and there stood Todd again. This time, his expression was different, worn down. You won't believe what I found out, Mark, he said, looking more vulnerable than ever. Mark's heart skipped a beat. Todd, the opponent, seemed to carry knowledge that could change everything. The room echoed with silence, all eyes on Todd. Curiosity piqued. What is it? Mark asked, a mix of dread and hope twisting in his gut. And as Todd began to speak, Mark knew this was a turning point, a piece of the puzzle that could either save or doom their fight for the community's heart. Todd took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts as the silence wrapped around the room like a thick blanket. His gaze flickered between the concerned faces staring back at him, each person holding their breath in anticipation. I overheard a meeting at the developer's office this morning, he finally said, his voice low and shaky. What did you hear? Mark pressed, leaning closer. Todd's vulnerability was confusing. It wasn't like him to show any sign of weakness. They planned to bulldoze this neighborhood in 2 weeks, Todd revealed, his eyes darting down as though the weight of the information was unbearable. And they don't just want the land. They're planning to displace everyone. They see your stories as nothing more than obstacles to get over. Gasps erupted throughout the room. Mark felt his heart plummet. 2 weeks? How can they move that fast? He stammered. They have the permits ready. Everything's lined up, Todd admitted, sorrow creeping into his tone. But there's more. They've hired a consulting firm specialized in property acquisitions. They bring in aggressive tactics to push you out. They threaten eviction, make it as hard as they can. Clara stood up, her expression fierce. We won't let that happen, she shouted, conviction fueling her words. The room ignited with murmurs of support and agreement. Mark felt the tide of hope surge again, but it was quickly dampened by Todd's worried look. Listen, I know what you're thinking, Todd interjected. You can fight back, but they don't play fair. They're ruthless. Your memories won't stop a bulldozer. Mark clenched his fists, adrenaline rushing through him. But we can't just sit back and let them take this from us. We have stories, and they matter. Todd shook his head, frustration etching lines on his face. Yeah, they matter. But they want to save your homes. You need to think smart. Use that footage you're collecting. Do more than just tell stories. Get people on your side. Raise awareness. You need to show how powerful community can be. As Todd's words sank in, the group rallied. What started as hopeful sharing of stories now transformed into a strategy meeting. Ideas flowed as they brainstormed campaign slogans, planned gatherings, and mapped out street corners for protests. Mark felt invigorated. Each word they exchanged sparked a fire in his belly. We'll build a website too, he said, catching Clara's eye. We can post our videos and stories there. Spread them everywhere. Social media could amplify our voices, he added, his voice trembling with excitement. But what if it's too late? Asked a soft voice from the back. It was an elderly man who had been quietly listening. Everyone turned to him, aware that they faced an uncertain future. It's never too late, Clara responded fiercely, rallying them back. We've put too much into this already to back down now. We're a community, and they can't take that away from us. Mark looked around at the determined faces surrounding him. He felt the energy pulsing through the room, weaving a tapestry of courage, unity, and unwavering strength. As they continued to strategize, the doors fluttered from an unexpected gust of wind. The ominous sound of thunder rumbled outside, mirroring the brewing storm of conflict ahead. What about you, Todd? Mark asked suddenly, catching the man off guard. Are you with us? You have the inside knowledge. You could help us fight back. Todd hesitated. Thoughts clouded his expression. I don't know if I'll be safe, but I can't stand by and watch this happen. Just tell me what you need me to do. Something shifted in Mark's chest, hope growing alongside clarity. Then you're part of this team. Together, we'll show them the heart of our community. Mark could almost see the spark of determination return to Todd's eyes. They might have a chance. And if they stood strong, they could shape the narrative. Just then, a loud crash of thunder shook the walls, shaking everyone from their thoughts. The dark clouds rolled overhead like an impending reminder of the fight ahead. All right, let us get to work, Mark exclaimed, the adrenaline coursing through them, excitement mingling with uncertainty. As everyone rallied together, ready to face what lay ahead, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that before long, their stories would have to turn into action. But lingering in the back of his mind was a question. What if all of this effort wasn't enough? The clock was ticking. The fight to protect their home had truly begun. Mark awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The previous night's storm had echoed in his mind, a reminder of everything they had to lose. As he prepared for the day, he couldn't shake off the anticipation of the community meeting. Today was their chance to turn the tide against the developer's greed. He arrived at Clara's house earlier than usual. The unmistakable smell of fresh coffee enveloped him as sounds of laughter floated through the air. The gathering was warm and bustling, neighbors swapping stories and spreading their shared determination like sunlight piercing through thick clouds. Mark, Clara greeted, her eyes sparkling with energy. She motioned for him to join the circle that had already formed. We're just about to start sharing ideas for the meeting. Mark leaned in, feeling the electric buzz of camaraderie. I think we should lead with the big stories, he suggested. Let people's personal ties to their homes shine through. They won't just be signatures on a petition. They'll be voices shouting back. The group's faces lit up as they bounced around ideas. Mr. Jenkins proposed a mural that would depict the neighborhood's rich history, while a young teen suggested a series of video interviews with families passionately sharing their stories. The room filled with an infectious enthusiasm that felt like a spark, igniting hope in everyone's hearts. But the clock was ticking, and lurking behind their excitement were shadows of doubt. They would have to face Todd and the developers soon. As the day drifted deeper into the evening, Mark absorbed the rapid yet vibrant chatter around him. He could feel the threads of unity weaving tighter, binding them together as a community prepared to face the uncertainty ahead. The night met them under the fluorescent lights of the community hall, where they gathered for the meeting. Mark looked around in awe at the crowd that had come together, families whose laughter and tears formed the tapestry of Maplewood. Clara stood at the front, her confidence unwavering. Tonight, we speak our truth, Clara declared, her voice ringing clear and strong. We are not just residents. We are a family, and together we will fight for our right to stay. Applause erupted, and the energy in the room shifted. The tension hung thick, but hope flickered like the flames of the candles lining the tables. Members began sharing their stories one by one, each thread weaving into the fabric of their fight. Mark felt a fire roar inside him as he listened, their collective voices rising like a wave crashing against the shore of indifference. As the meeting progressed, Todd strolled in, his presence once again filling the air with uncertainty. Mark caught his eye, and the man nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of their shared purpose now. With each story shared, the crowd grew louder, the spirit more alive. Something shifted in Todd. He could see their heart, their determination. When it was time for Mark to present the video they had created, nerves jangled in his stomach. He stepped forward, the collective strength of the community propelling him. What you're about to see isn't just a collection of stories. It's the essence of what we are, who we are. It's love, laughter, and generations of memories. The video unfolded a vibrant mural of life in their neighborhood. Laughter, memories, dreams sprawled across the screen. Each face on the video crafted a narrative impossible to ignore. The crowd watched, riveted, through tears and tender smiles. As the last frame faded, silence enveloped the room. This is what they want to erase, Mark said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. But we refuse to let that happen. We refuse to be silenced. The crowd erupted in cheers, adrenaline surging through them. Mark caught Todd's gaze once more. The ex-developer seemed shaken, yet contemplative. Maybe, just maybe, they would carve out a path forward together. After the meeting concluded, when the applause had calmed, Mark approached Todd. Why do you keep showing up? He asked, genuine curiosity lacing his words. Todd hesitated, then replied, maybe I'm hoping to find a way to make this right. I've spent my life in the shadow of profit. But what if we could change that? Mark felt the weight of that question. Will you stand with us? Todd nodded, uncertainty still lingering in the air. He wasn't wholly with them yet, but it was a connection formed through their shared humanity. Then came the day of reckoning, as the developers' meeting approached. Mark and Clara led their community to stand together, armed not only with stories but the undeniable spirit of unity, a testament to their fight. Together, they took to the streets for a march that mirrored their values. As the sun began to set, casting golden rays across the block, the community rallied in front of the developer's building. Mark felt a swell of pride as neighbors joined hands, their voices intertwining into a powerful anthem of resistance that could be heard for miles. Together, stronger, they chanted, their voices echoing in harmony. Tears filled Clara's eyes, her radiant smile illuminating the moment. They stood not just as individuals but as a family, one built on love, resilience, and unyielding strength. In that very moment, surrounded by the vibrant pulse of community, Mark understood the transformation was not solely about saving houses. It was about preserving the heart, the memories, the relationships that filled their lives with meaning as they faced their future. Side by side, Mark realized they had already won. They emerged with a fierce awakening that would resonate beyond Maplewood. A movement sparking hope and inspiring others. This was just the beginning, and now they could change the world. Remember, your story matters. So, if you felt inspired by this journey, you need to subscribe now and ring that bell for more heartfelt stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this powerful ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation.